moments to compare to tonight. A piece of space history is falling to Earth. Nobody expected Mir to survive into the 21st century. It took Russian skill and luck to keep the spacecraft going for 15 years. But no amount of skill can pinpoint the hour or place of Mir's return. The best guess is that tons of debris will spread across a target area 120 miles wide by 3,600 miles long in the South Pacific. As Mir descends, the folks at NASA have their eyes on a mission that has been one of their most difficult, sending an explorer vehicle to Mars. Kelly Beatty is here. He's the senior editor of Sky and Telescope magazine, and joining us is Farouk El-Baz, research professor and director of the Center for Remote Sensing at Boston University. Welcome. We talked about the Mars mission. So far, we don't have a terribly proud track record, 3 out of 4 failures.
That is right.
So this one has to work. The next one will be going up April 7th, I believe.
It really does. The Mars program has floundered a little bit, and many of the scientists are now aching to see one success to get back on track.
What has to happen now to get public reaction and public support for the Mars program again?
You know, the American people are not used to failure. They're used to seeing NASA succeed. And when, after Mars Pathfinder, which was such a tremendous success, to see the next 2 Mars probes fail for reasons that weren't good ones, in one case, a mere conversion of metric to English units, for example.
Yeah, that was astounding.
Yes, and it stung badly, and it caused NASA to reassess its whole approach to exploring Mars and slow down and do it more carefully. So you can be sure that this particular mission coming up, the 2001 Mars Odyssey, has been picked over meticulously to make sure that every I is dotted and T crossed.
I understand there were hundreds of changes to software and hardware in the next
and checks and rechecked, because one of the failures resulted from the fact that somebody put some numbers in and nobody checked them, and that never happened in the space program. And there is a backup for everything, including humans. So this time the checks are essential.
So what is the objective of this next Mars mission, April 7th? What are they hoping to
Well, it's
find?
largely an orbiter that will, rather than trying to land on the planet, will go into orbit around it and create a survey, if you will, of the, obviously, pictures of the surface, and also, more importantly, they can use the light reflected from the surface to tell something about the composition. Where is it lava and where is it sand, for example? And using that, they hope to try to pinpoint where to land spacecraft in the future.
It's basically a remote sensor from orbit with sensing instruments and cameras to get more information about the planet prior to the landing mission.
And that everlasting search for water on Mars someplace.
Especially that, because now that we see evidence of, great evidence of the potential for water on Mars, and we know for certain that there was water on Mars in the past. We do for certain, because this is from the geology of Mars, because there are channels, dry channels now, that we know could have not been created by anything else but running surface water.
Well, what if it was another liquid, not water, that we don't even know about?
It is more difficult to get any other liquid than water on Mars. It is likely that most likely that it is water.
Yeah, imagine the Mediterranean Sea dammed at the Straits of Gibraltar, and then suddenly having that dam broken and all the water from the Mediterranean flowing out at once. That's the magnitude of the water that has flowed in some places across Mars. There's really nothing else that can do it like that.
You know, we're suffering already from a lack of support, I think, for the space program. Even President Bush has announced some cutbacks, and it seems now that the space station will not be fully constructed in the way that it was originally designed. What's it going to take to get people excited as they were when we decided to put a man on the moon? And that
you just said it, because what you really need is a goal. That in the early part of the space program, that was that one goal, that all action fit into that one goal. And right now there isn't a specific goal for NASA. It floundered because there was no specific goal.
Well, will some pictures from Mars be enough if this next Mars orbiter
It's an
succeeds?
incremental step. You know, this is, as I said, NASA's had to slow down and take its time. Before you can run, you have to walk. And so the original plans called for a very aggressive exploration strategy in search of life, in search of water, that would end up with returning samples, carefully selected samples, to the Earth for analysis in about 10 years. That's not going to happen now. They're going to take a much slower similar approach, and this is just one step along the way.
Is there anything spectacular that could result from our continued missions to the International Space Station that could, again, inspire public enthusiasm and support?
Yeah, the spectacular things that might come from the space station are things that deal with the environment of the Earth, or something new, some instruments that we can put there to do something, because right now the space station is the only justification for any human beings in space. It is the only reason for manned space missions.
In some sense, you've asked this question of the two wrong people, because we're pretty much in the, you know, humans can't necessarily do it all camp. And think about it. The ultimate goal of the space station is to have crews circle the Earth more or less indefinitely. We've been circling the Earth more or less indefinitely for 40 years.
Yeah, and we've been sending people up in the shuttle and bringing them back, and for a while we had no place to send them.
And to Mir, too.
And to Mir.
And especially with these cutbacks, the first thing to go is a lot of the science activities. And so, at least for the foreseeable future, I don't think you're going to see any terrific scientific breakthroughs from the space station.
And the space station was also so late in coming that we're probably using technology that is...
This is a
10 or
very
15
good
years
point,
old.
actually. The space station is very late in coming. And at the end of the Apollo program, NASA began to think of the Apollo applications program. What do we do after Apollo? And there was, most of the people at NASA were of the opinion that they should now, in the 70s, start the space station, because we knew that the Russians were starting a space station, which is Mir. And NASA opted then to make the space shuttle its goal. And that was very dangerous, because they made a space transportation system for human beings to shuttle to from nothing, because there was nothing in space.
A trucking system with no destination.
In addition, the space shuttle is today working with technologies of the 70s, and it's a very dangerous thing. All of the computers, all of the communications equipment on the shuttle, now we can use this tiny little thing. The microphone in the shuttle is a huge thing from the old time in the 70s, before we invented these little gizmos. And it is lined up within the lining of they cannot change it. So that shuttle is tied to the technologies of the 70s, and it should have been a space transportation system now that has nothing to do with the old technology.
Kelly, in the line, is it a waste of money?
In some sense, yes, to the extent that we're not going anywhere with it. Particularly with NASA's budget being stagnated, we can't make the improvements to the shuttle. We can't make a second-generation shuttle, for example. NASA has committed to using this for at least another decade, so this 70s technology will be with us for a while.
My thanks to Farouk El-Baz and Kelly Beatty. Coming up, Margie Reedy looks at an untimely breach in U.S.-Russian relations. That's next on Newsnight.